What up, y'all? Friday's edition of WWT Live, the Pepsi of wrestling. Yeah, we're going to get into it. Coming up next.
I am La Princesa Tiffany Nieves, and you're watching Women's Wrestling Talk. And get it? Got it? Bueno.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. We can get all into there's so much to talk about. And it's a fun, I believe, I'm trying to go through all the stories in my head. It's a fun Friday, and I'm not doing it alone. The professor is in the building.
Go forward. Go forward.
Oh, gosh.
Go forward.
Well, welcome back. It's good to have you home.
Look, girls been working, man. They
I
got me
see.
working.
Listen.
Working. But here we are.
Welcome
But
back.
let's get it. Let's get to it. You know, we have the draft for the NFL, the draft for WWE, and I guess a draft with, you know, the fake TK in his head. What are we talking about?
Well, to really understand this, we've got to go back almost 48 hours to the end of AEW Dynamite. Because at the end of AEW Dynamite, we see this pretty incredible moment happen where Jack Perry is back. He says he's going to discuss his AEW status in the ring with Tony Khan. He shakes Tony Khan's hand. He gives this really weird look into the camera. Then he hits Tony Khan in the stomach with a mic. Tony just falls prostrate. Like, it's just beautiful. And then from there, the Young Bucks come out and Okada, and they're like, what are you doing? And all of a sudden, this turns into a Meltzer driver. The locker room empties. People are concerned about Tony Khan. We see the first AEW sighting of Shad Khan. Like, let's just acknowledge it. It was chaotic. It was crazy. And I think it was a great follow-up to the AEW pay-per-view Dynasty. I'm with you, Dylan. It was the greatest AEW Dynamite ending of all time. And so I feel like, wow, this was the perfect follow-up. This is how you keep the momentum going on your product. So all of the question in the IWC was, knowing that the NFL draft would begin on Thursday, would Tony Khan show up to the draft? And if so, would he be wearing a neck brace? And like clockwork, when they show the Jacksonville Jaguars, in is Tony Khan with a neck brace, and all of a sudden Tony Khan is a hero in the IWC. I mean, people who swore off AEW found themselves loving Tony Khan. And Tony, I mean, I'll give it to him. He was moving like this. It was just, it was great. It was absolutely great. It was so great that the NFL wanted to interview him today. And so they did. And this is just, I mean, it's the perfect storm for AEW. It's the perfect kind of mainstream coverage you want. And with the NFL as well, it's almost like, why didn't they think to do this sooner? I mean, he's part owner. Like, it just makes sense. What does Tony Khan do?
I have it.
Here's what he does. Here's what he does.
You got the video. Oh, yeah. Wait. Oops.
And wait, well, after that, there's a comment that Boza made that I'm going to address as well. So I'll wait for the footage first, and then we'll.
Chair is AEW. In many years, we are like the Pepsi of pro wrestling. Yeah. And we're up against a really evil juggernaut. WWE is our competitor. That's who we're facing. AEW, like the Pepsi of pro wrestling. WWE is like the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling. And I'm really proud of what we do down here.
All right. All right, Tony. Hold on, real quick. What's the prognosis?
Chair is AEW.
Yeah. So somehow we ended up here.
Are you surprised though? I mean, I feel like it's kind of like And I'm trying to not be that person, but I'm gonna be that person. It's kind of like my dog, right? She does the same thing every single day, right? I mean, because when people talk about their dog all the time, I've now become one of those people. She does the same thing every single day. Why would I come home expecting her not to do the same thing? Like, why are we surprised at these antics?
Let's. Here's partially why we're surprised by this, because first of all, who in their wheelhouse thought Tony Khan would compare the WWE to Harvey Weinstein? That's the first thing. The second thing is the analogy itself. I'm with you on you being the Pepsi of pro wrestling.
Yeah, we thought he was gonna say Coke.
I mean, that's kind of how the analogies go, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking soft drinks, and when you think about the soft drink wars, it was Coke versus Pepsi. That was a big war. So calling them Coke would have made sense, though I'm sure people would have found their own jokes with that. But Harvey Weinstein, like okay, here's what this is. This is like me. Oh God, I can't even do this carefully. I'm not even built to be this reckless.
Okay.
I'm not built to be this reckless. Okay. So let me see if I can make some sort of comparison. I can't. My brain doesn't even allow me to do analogies that far off.
Like, he did Nike and Reebok. He could have done so many different Toyota and Honda.
He literally said, I mean, this is as bad as saying he is AEW is the orange fruit of pro wrestling and WWE is the R. Kelly. Like, are you kidding me right now? They have nothing to do with each other, but it's that egregious. Just call him.
I mean, if he said R. Kelly instead of Harvey Weinstein, I mean, I think I would have even more questions.
But it's so far off. Like, that's the thing. And so I'm just sitting back, and to me, where it frightens me a bit is, again, we're focused on the product, and the product has been good. The product was so good during the NFL draft. They actually said on commentary, Tony Khan is suffering the results of having a pile driver at AEW. Like, they put you over. Oh, you can't ask for any more than that. Really can't. Your photo went viral. All of the things. It is what AEW would want right now. Right. It is. And so I just think I think it's unfortunate, and this might be a bold statement, but I'd like to believe that you can, and they're probably not watching. I've got some friends who I've been in a group chat with today who are completely opposite my position on this. They think this is awfully cool. They're like, this is not an issue of morality. This is pro wrestling. Take your pot shots, et cetera, et cetera. But I am a firm believer that the best way to build your product is focus on your product. Right. It's not to turn around and tear the other product down. It's one of the reasons people have such a hard time with politics and everything else, because there's so much mudslinging telling us what everybody else isn't doing that I don't know what you are doing. And so I just think it's unfortunate that it feels like the leader of this company doesn't believe in his product enough to focus on that, as opposed to taking a pot shot elsewhere. Everything AEW got this coverage. The neck brace got the coverage. The story Wednesday night got the coverage. All the things got the coverage. And here's the thing. Sans that line, he did a great job. So it was like he didn't need this. Right. So I think it's unfortunate that he felt like he had to grab it.
Here's the thing. I agree with you. I agree. I do agree with you. However, I'm agreeing with you, meaning that in whatever field we do or the things that we do, there's something for us to lose, right? Meaning that, and this part, I'm not going to speak for you. I'm going to speak for me. Meaning that if I had the type of money, the type of, fake TK money, I know I would be in certain cases a little bit more reckless because I don't have anything to lose. meaning that, and I'm not in his pocketbook or any of that stuff, but I feel like he's taking these shots. He's doing this, he's doing that. Even if AEW's in the red, it seems like that's not affecting. It's easier for it not to affect you if it's not affecting your bottom line, because you have another pile of money sitting somewhere else. So when you can operate in that existence, you make more reckless decisions, and your state of judgment is not the average person who sits in the middle, where it's like, if I say this to my boss and I lose my job, we might be homeless in 6 months. That's totally different than I say this to my boss. Oh, I'm Gucci. I got a pile of money, so I'm doing this for fun. And I actually experienced that at one of my jobs, where this guy was an exec, and he was making more money on the side doing real estate. And at the height of the project, he said, nah, I'm out. Like, wait, what? What? So I just feel like we're surprised, going back to like my dog, we're surprised that he does stuff like this when he couldn't. Like, how many times have you seen online somebody go and take away Tony Khan's phone? How many times have we seen people say that? And it's just kind of like, he's gonna, until he feels the brunt of his actions. Like, say if all the wrestlers like, yeah, we can't, like, everybody leaves, and he can't operate a business anymore, and his father's like, you've gone too far, you're now cut off. Until those type of stuff happen, then it's totally different. He can make those decisions, and he probably got fined for that too. So
yeah, it's very interesting. It's really interesting, and I think, and again, it's hard to say because we're not in any of their shoes, but
not yet.
Not yet. But there's a part of me, when you own a business and you also realize that there are other people who are eating based off of what you do and don't do, you tend to think a little bit differently, And so my thought isn't even about Tony Khan's cachet. It's about the X number of people that are a part of AEW that could potentially be impacted by it. And it's not, here's the thing, it's not just one thing. It's this being done over and over and over and over again. And, you can afford, and I hate to quote Hulk Hogan, but I will, when he was talking about the downfall of WCW, and he was saying, you can make one of these kinds of mistakes. You can't keep making these kinds of mistakes over and over and over and over and over again. And so I think this is going to be interesting, because I think it's unfortunate. All the work that was done this week, I think, to get us off of the foolishness from 2 weeks ago with the video. It's like we've crowned 5 new champions. We're in the new era of Swerve. We got all these things that are happening. Willow's a champion. We've got these great matches to talk about with Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay. All of these great things, and it's nothing in ring that's stopping this stuff. That's the scary part of it to me. And I still believe that there's a way to promote your product without having to, take pot shots at another product. I mean, if the only way I can say I'm great is by saying you're not, then I'm not really that great.
I agree with you, but the different perspectives. I mean, you can go to like Will Smith and, the thought of like a poor man's mentality, and that's why it keeps a lot of us held back, right? But if you've been rich all your life, the decision-making, not skills, the decision-making, things that you can say and do and get away with is totally different than the average person. So like, I agree with you as far as business, it's about the business. It's not about you. Like, that's how I operate my businesses. Like, it's not about me, it's about the businesses. I can give you so many incidents where it's like, no, I'd rather do this. It's like, well, are you trying to sell this product? Or like, what are we doing? Right. However, if I had the money and the cachet to just slap on whatever I want to do and do all the things, it'd be a totally different scenario. So I get it, but again, he went viral for several things, and now this comment, I feel like he's going viral again. Not necessarily for that. I don't know. We're talking about it, And to me, it's still kind of like, because how he said it is like, you know how somebody who thinks they're funny, they say something in their head and then they say it and they're kind of waiting for the laugh. It's like how he said it. I'm just like, wait, did he? And you could see the other two hosts, and there's probably a producer screaming in their ear, telling them to like, we got it, like we exiting out this real quick. So it's just
because the other thing, and I will definitely get off of this, is the NFL audience understands very clearly Harvey Weinstein is not a name to play with.
right.
You know, and so that's the other piece of reading the room and knowing your audience. Like, if the interviewers are going, whoa, okay, let's that's not a good thing.
Right.
That's not a good thing at all. And so I think that's the thing to go, what are we doing here? And I know some people, well, hold on. I want to go back. There was a comment made a while ago that I think Boza made about the cameras were following Tony Khan because of the NFL draft. Well, actually, I saw this piece of news, and I don't think I put it in the group chat, but I meant to. But I thought of you immediately, TK, because they are actually, the reason the cameras were following Tony Khan is they are actually doing kind of a look in the life of Tony Khan for a solid week, which included all of these things, which could explain then why that angle happened Wednesday night, because they've been following him all week long, which included Wednesday night, included last night for the draft. That's why cameras have been following him. So I'm anxious. And it was the NFL cameras that were following him to get a look at the day in the life or a week in the life of Tony Khan. So that's why the cameras were there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing when that would happen. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, TK, talk to me. Now you'll get to see what you wanted to see.
Yes, no comments on that. All right, well, what do we have? And this is, I'm going to put this in the private chat. Said just sent it to us, which is very interesting. So we'll have to talk about it.
Okay.
Eventually,
before we get out of here, I'm sure.
Definitely before we get out of here. But what do we got next?
Also, let's talk a little bit as we prepare for the all this draft talk. Dominic Mysterio, it was reported earlier that he suffered an injury. He was wearing a sling, if you remember, this past Monday on Raw. And so it's been reported by our friends at Fightful that his injury was serious enough such that he did not go on the European tour. He was replaced by Ricochet. It was said that this was supposed to be kind of like a Tommy John surgery that he was going to have. And it was said that he was supposed to have that. That was actually reported earlier today. But then he has since tweeted out and he says no surgery for this guy. So it looks like Dominic Mysterio will still be on TV, will not have to undergo surgery, but likely won't be in the ring for a little while. I think this gets very interesting because this is yet a second. Oh, wow, that is interesting. A second. I
thought you froze for a second. I was like,
no, I just thought it went, what? This is the second member of Judgment Day in the last week and a half to 2 weeks that has been taken off the shelf for injury, or put on the shelf rather, because of injury. So I don't know what this does for Judgment Day. I don't know how this impacts the draft potentially tonight. But this will be very, very interesting for sure. But I am glad that Dom will not need surgery. That means obviously we'll get to see him back in a ring sooner than later if surgery was involved.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think you guys might have discussed it, but it's interesting. Obviously, we know Rhea Ripley's out, which I think if she wasn't out, the destruction of Judgment Day would have happened. However, the way Damian Priest operated on Raw, I was just kind of like, oh, she might not have a Judgment Day to come back to. The way everything's playing out. So I'm really curious as far as how that story is going to go.
It is going to be very interesting to see what happens with all of this. So I'll be very much looking forward to seeing what comes of all of this. We are checking a bunch of things right now, people. So
What do you got next?
I kind of want to dig
dive
into
into
this
that one.
story
Let's
here
go.
because this is okay. I'm seeing multiple things, so I want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. This is an interesting story that we don't have all the details on, and there's clearly something to it, but I don't know what the something is. So this piece of late breaking news, I'll just read what it says, and I suppose we can pontificate from there. But apparently, according to Sportico, WWE President Nick Khan has filed to sell what appears to be all of his holdings of shares in TKO to the tune of nearly 235,000 shares. Now, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means.
I feel like even when Nick Khan was first brought on, I feel like the intent was he was just going to get things. The whole goal was to help Vince sell the company or get the company in a certain position. And I'm and let me know in the chat. I feel like there was never an intent for Nick to stay on like long term. I think the intent was for him to get the company in a certain way where everything is going, everything is kind of up and up. He gets his, return on investment, and he's gonna move on to the next project. I feel like that was the intent from the beginning. I might be completely wrong, but I feel like we might have discussed that when he was first brought on.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is interesting, and I don't fully know what we do with this yet. So I'll just say that we will give you more news on this when it's available because I like to kind of be able to say what this means.
Yeah.
I don't know that it necessarily means that he's resigning.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that, if you'll remember, Triple H was part of the board before they sold. When they sold, he was no longer part of the board, but he's still very much involved in the company. So we'll see what that means. And hopefully
their process. Like he's still, even if he sells his shares, he still have hold the position of the company, still be president.
Totally.
However, there's different levels to it as far as your say. And again, like we don't know what based off of conversations I've had with people who dealt with Nick Khan before WWE. He's about his ish. Like he is very calculated in a good way as far as business wise. So I feel like he has a game plan, and this might be step 8 of the 30-step process.
Now, arguably, here's a bigger story. Breaking news. Ready for this?
Sure.
Here we go. Vince McMahon is selling the last of his shares in TKO. This officially ends all ties that Vince McMahon has with TKO. Now
and then there's rumors that he's starting his own wrestling promotion, which I highly doubt.
No. See, that was clickbait. Because if you read in that story, they're talking about, is it possible, blah, 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 but it's something he's actually never mentioned to anybody. So, yeah.
Well, I'm like, bro, you can't do that.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody would go for that. I think, again, that was just a clickbait kind of story. But I think this is big news because it really does mean because here's the thing. Vince McMahon was gone from TKO, but he was selling, shares and all those things of his stock, but he still had a decent amount. But with him now selling all of those shares, he's done. Like, it's over. That's done. So that I think is a bigger piece of news, which obviously we'll be giving you more on this come Monday once some more news about all of this comes out. But very, very interesting.
Bosa says, no special nobodies said, is Stephanie really is back? She's not though.
She's not.
She's not officially back in any position.
Right.
The real TK might be right. He wants. I mean, I feel like Stephanie will eventually be back in some capacity. You know, they have kids, which I think the last time I checked, and you guys can check in the chat or in Google, I think their kids are like, you know, 11, 12, early teens.
Very much.
So, you know, it's I don't know what their lives like. I can, you know, guess, but you know, maybe you want to be there for your kids, maybe it's mental health things, but you know, leaving something that it seemed at one point she was so passionate about, the business behind it, and the fact that your husband is doing it, it makes it hard for me to believe that she will eventually not go back. Like I don't see that. But you know, she might be doing a whole nother business that we have no idea about that she's completely happy doing.
Right.
That's probably too. So we'll see. But the fact that she came was at night 2 WrestleMania, I don't think that's an accident.
Well, I mean, even going back to her sitting front row at the Hall of Fame, you know, yeah, I think if anything, you know, she may have been just kind of seeing how it felt to be back, you know, kind of getting that feeling and maybe easing her way in. But yeah, you know, it felt good to have Stephanie back. It felt good to see her. And yeah, there's probably a whole show we could do just on that. And yeah, so yeah.
And I'm not one to put my my goals out there like that. However, like one of my goals for a number of years is to sit down with Stephanie, not to talk about just wrestling, but so many other things that I've kind of know of through the grapevine. Like there's so many other things about her that I feel like us as, you know, a wrestling community doesn't know, that it'd be like, oh, okay, like you might see in a different light. So that's like one of my like checklist goals. So
I'm just dropping random things today. I don't know why this is happening, but the other thing is nobody's really had the conversation about the fact that not only was Stephanie present at Mania, but backstage was Linda as well.
Yes, I did see the picture. Yeah, you're right.
Not enough people are talking about that. And the fact that everybody showed up when Vince isn't there. Just something for another day. Take that tea leaf and run with it. Let's talk about the draft.
Let's do that, because that could go to a whole nother conversation.
That's why I said I'm just gonna drop it, and I'm not.
It could be the whole. If you watch our ROH post show, it could be the whole separate house situation. If you don't know what I'm talking about,
exactly.
Whole ROH post show to check that out.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. So then, tonight's the night, and I think the timing of this is amazing. Of course, last night began the NFL draft. Tonight begins the WWE draft. It begins on SmackDown, and we've been kind of dropping some tea leaves all throughout the week, but we said we really would focus on it today. So I want to make sure, again, that we kind of understand the rules of engagement for tonight. Some things are different than times past, and some things are similar. One of the things that's the same is that Friday Night SmackDown will have 2 picks apiece in each round, while Monday Night Raw will have 3 picks apiece. The whole idea is that Raw gets more picks because it's a longer show, 3-hour show versus a 2-hour show. So there's that. One of the things that's really different is that for the first time, champions are actually going to be protected, and they will not be eligible to be drafted. So all of your Raw champions, that is Damian Priest, Becky Lynch, Awesome Truth, Sami Zayn, they will remain on Raw. That will not be impacted. On the SmackDown side, Cody Rhodes, Bayley, A-Town Down Under, and Logan Paul, they will all be SmackDown superstars. Now, in the past, we've seen champions possibly switch sides, all of those other things. That's not going to be an issue this time around. Now, who is eligible that is a champion are the women's tag team champions. They are eligible to be drafted, and if they lose those tag titles, then they will stay on whatever brand they've been drafted to. So that's one thing that's different. I want to address Dylan's comment in just a second. Of course, the first picks belong to SmackDown beginning today, and then the rosters will go into effect on May the 6th, which is 2 days after Backlash. So that's that. So let's talk, and I don't remember if we talked about this Monday or Wednesday, or I don't remember, but Dylan mentioned that he hates how NXT does not get any picks. So let me kind of explain the method behind that madness. NXT, even based on what Shawn Michaels said Wednesday after Trick Williams' win, is a developmental brand. They are not viewed still as a third equal brand. They're viewed as a developmental brand. And so because of that, it would really be hard, since they've been positioned that way all this time, to make a draft for someone from Raw or SmackDown look like an equivalent move, because it wouldn't be. So it wouldn't do good for NXT, nor would it do good for the people being drafted, because now it looks like they're being demoted, which is not good. Now, perhaps the only way you fix that is to change the perception of NXT from being developmental to being an equivalent third draft, or third brand rather. Which I'm not sure that they can do, because they still need that place for developmental, which I think NXT has done a great job of being the place where people get prepared for Raw or SmackDown. And since there will be a number of NXT names available, we will still see that NXT impact, because people will be drafted to Raw and SmackDown. And one of the concerns that's floating out there by several people is that, could NXT get gutted? And that's a horrible way to say that. But in other words, here's the better way to say it. Could NXT be depleted? That's the question. I don't think so either, because what I don't think people recognize is NXT has so much talent that's just waiting in the wings that we haven't even seen on television yet. Talent that's been hanging out on Level Up, talent that's still from the NIL program, talent that's still from independent organizations. They've got a lot of talent. So they're going to have to move out some of the names that have really kind of grown past the brand to be able to do what needs to do. Go back to that Boza comment real quick. I think the difference between now and then.
Read it for our audio listeners.
Okay, so thank you. Boza's comment says HBK's reaction felt like NXT got depleted last year. They lost 19 talent. I think the difference between last year and this year is, last year at this time, they were just coming out of that 2.0 phase, and they were just starting to reestablish kind of NXT as we now know it. Right now, they're in a space where, man, NXT is cooking. We already can look at 4 or 5 names that have next that we know in NXT, whose stories we're waiting to see kind of play out. So I don't think NXT is going to be hurting at all. There was another comment. Where was the comment? No, back up. It was this one. Dylan says, I still don't understand why Ava was in those scenes at Raw and SmackDown comparing notes for the draft with contracts. Here's why. Because the GMs for Raw and SmackDown are likely talking about, well, what about this one from NXT? And what about that one from NXT? And for her, she also has to probably make sure that, okay, we still have some talent in here. So the idea is, do I look at a Carmelo Hayes, or do I look at one half of Out the Mud? Right? Like, that's not to be funny. It's to say, okay, you can't have everybody. Right. But here are some of the people who are on the playing field. So I think that's going to be interesting.
Impending stories too that are leading up to what is the show that's going to be in Vegas June 6th?
Oh, yeah, Battleground.
So there's still some impending stories and stuff like that. And I feel like there's still a lot of people that we don't even know, like you referenced to, that are in the pipeline. I feel like they're really developing that pipeline, that it's no longer like, yes, NXT is developmental, but I think it's more developmental to get like, here are where the cameras are. Here's how you play the camera. Here's how you do this. Now you're in an audience. What are you going to do? All that stuff. But there's so many people behind there that are just starting that we have no idea. Like all these college athletes, all these.
Yes.
I know a couple of college who've tried out. If you actually check out the interview with J-Rod, amazing looking and sweetheart of a girl. She trains out of Knox Pro out here in LA. She tried out for WWE twice, and she's been in the game for 2 years. I just looks wise, I have no doubt she's going to be in WWE within the next year and a half. So it's like there's so many people that that are floating around that it's just more of okay. They let go of this many people, but they have I think with Ava being back there, is just seeing what the storylines are and going from there. So I think we'll be fine.
Let's also remember there's an entire show that they just released at the top of April on Roku, which is all people who have been signed who we've not even seen, started doing dark matches. And there's another name in there that nobody's been talking about, but she had a match at NXT. Remember when they were doing all that talk a couple of years ago with Gable Steveson, and then they had his, I don't want to call her female counterpart, but she was a young lady who would wrestle. She's clearly signed to WWE at this point because she's been wrestling matches for the NXT house shows. So I think things are interesting. Sed had a comment that will probably be a good place for us to start relative to this draft. Sed says, realistically, only 2 or 3 NXT names make sense to move up. I'd like to hear his thoughts on that. And TK, I'd like to hear your thoughts on who from NXT should be considered in the NXT draft. And I'm going to go to Special Little Nobody's comment soon too.
Oh God, that's a good question because I feel like Carmelo's he's already there, right? He's already on the main roster.
No,
not officially on the
not officially. They haven't signed him yet. They signed Braun, but they didn't sign him
since like February. So I kind of feel like it's already a given. So would he be considered leaving NXT, or is this like the dirty little secret that everybody knew?
I think everybody's certain right now he's gone to one of these places.
Definitely he's going. Well, I mean, obviously I think we're leaving the champions from NXT. That's interesting because those are and then Tiff is already gone, obviously. I don't think Roxanne can go because she's champion, but I think she might have been a good decision to go, but now she's champion, which is interesting. I don't know now. Now I'm thinking because they did have, I think Bosa said 19 from last year, but I feel like NXT is so like solid in what they're doing now. I don't really see, because remember like a couple of years ago we were always talking about, okay, well when are they going to go to main roster? Now I feel like the storyline is so like tight that like I'm not looking for them to go to main roster. I kind of want to see how it all plays out. I can't. The 2 main picks that I thought would be possible, one is definitely going, and the other one's champion. Who do you think?
So I have a few names down. Now it's interesting. And I think Boza mentioned this. Boza said the NXT Women's Championship was vacated last year. Do they leave the women's division alone, considering the NXT Women's North American Championship at some point? I actually think Roxanne's getting the call. I think so. I totally do.
Champion, though.
Well, so was Indy Hartwell last year. Indy had just won the title, and then they were. So it's part of the reason why I actually thought that Tatum Paxley was going to walk away with the championship on Tuesday. It seemed very close because that would be how you get this out of Roxanne's hands and make it clear. Right. So for me, I see a few names. Now, let's go back because Sed, who asked the question, he said he only saw 3 potentials from NXT. He thinks it's Carmelo Hayes, Baron Corbin, and Blair Davenport.
Does Baron Corbin count now? Because it's like, he's been.
See, the thing that's tricky is whenever you have anybody from the main roster showing up at NXT, they're not like officially drafted to NXT. Case in point, the Final Testament has been on NXT the last couple of weeks, but they're involved in the draft. So I think the possibilities are endless relative to that. And yeah, Baron Corbin was a free agent, so he could do that. Out, son. Thank you. One of the names that I think we're going to see, I think we see Roxanne Perez. I think we see Lyra Valkyria. I think so. I do. I think Lyra's title reign, think about it. A, she beat Becky Lynch. That was
Right.
a massive moment. From
Right.
there, I think her title reign was designed to really prep her for main roster. And I don't really see much left for her to do. I mean, she could beat out Tatum Paxley in the next couple of weeks and still make her way to Raw or SmackDown. But I think Lyra is one we'll see. I think Blair Davenport is another one. Blair, I think, has been ready. She was ready in the 2.0 era. She has what it takes, and I think she's the kind of person who is one of those hardcore villains that they don't have in the women's division right now in WWE. So I think Blair Davenport.
Here's
I
the
agree.
question, though.
Yes. Mhm.
Oh wait, I almost forgot. Here's the question: because everything's we're having the draft now, and obviously we had Tiffany make her entrance to the main roster earlier this year. Do you think they're going to be hard set now when they do call-ups from NXT to the main roster during the draft, or is it still going to be like a free-flowing thing?
It'll probably be free flowing, because a year is a long time.
Right.
And if you think somebody's ready, you'll test them out, et cetera, et cetera. I think Tiffany really proved herself to be ready, and they said we're not going to wait. So I think they will still hold that as an option. What I do think is going to be interesting is, for one, you've got a couple of moves that are happening with some of these brands that I think that I was not thinking about before, but today really hit me, and they're going to have to really consider that. So, for instance, we've talked before about NXT really making preparations for their debut on the CW in October. And so I think a lot of their moves right now are designed for that, which means I do think there will be some people from the main roster who make their way over to the CW, but they're really going to take this time from now until October to strengthen what they have. So I think, we're going to see the strength of Trick leading this crew. We're going to see the crowning of the North American champion on the women's side. We'll see some more women really step up to the plate, I think. And they'll just keep doing what they've been doing, but have it nice and strong for the CW. The other thing we have to remember is Raw is going to Netflix in January.
Right.
And a lot of these moves that I think we'll see to Monday Night Raw will be prepping us for whatever this Netflix product is going to look like. And so that'll be interesting. Let me see. There were a couple of other names that I had off the top of my head. Go ahead.
Dylan said Metaphor.
Noam Dar for sure. And you could make the argument for all four of them. You could. I personally would like to see Jakara and Lash. Jakara more than Lash. Get some more reps under her. She hasn't had that many matches. I think Lash has really progressed significantly. There's a part of me that would honestly love to see Lash become the North American champion. I'd like to see that happen before she heads to Raw or SmackDown. So it'll be interesting, though. Noam Dar is absolutely ready to go. He's totally ready. I definitely think, and some might disagree with me on this one, but I think Fallon Henley's ready. I know she's kind of the, some think she's kind of the next choice for the NXT Women's Championship or the North American Championship. But I think Fallon Henley has what it takes to kind of be that person that starts in the main roster and you really start to see her rise. I think that could really work for her if they choose to pull that trigger. If they don't, it's okay. On the men's side, I'm surprised nobody's mentioned this, or at least I haven't seen it yet. Ilya Dragunov. Like, Ilya was ready over in NXT UK.
Right.
He's so ready. And for those who have not seen it, go on to Peacock. Go back to, I believe it was October of 2022 on NXT UK. October 29th, I believe, was the show. And check out that match between Ilya Dragunov and the artist formerly known as Walter. You call him Gunther now. It'll change your life, okay? Ilya Dragunov has been ready for the main roster.
Do you think what's going to happen on Monday, that's what's going to happen?
There's been talk of this. And I'll tell you, Ilya joining Imperium makes Imperium a problem, a real problem. I'd love to see it personally. I'd absolutely love it. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great. So yeah, I definitely see Ilya going. I thought I had another name on here and I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are some of my quick off the top of my head picks that I definitely see going to from NXT to, you know, Raw or SmackDown. I'm not sure where they'll
Cedric
go.
saying Wesley.
I could see Wesley, though Wesley, you know, they're still waiting for him to get the green light in terms of his health. But I also think Wesley would be a major attraction on the CW. So
Yeah, I feel like there's still some business for him to do in NXT, especially. I mean, obviously, how he left because of his injury. So, and then I feel like, yeah, there's still some. Yeah, he needs to not talent wise, he's good, but I feel like storyline, there's still some other things that he needs to do on NXT.
And strangely enough, I think one of the things that has to happen on Raw and SmackDown is they have to kind of have enough of the lay of the land so that when a Wesley gets there, he doesn't seem like he's in the land of giants. So that's where I think, you know, JD McDonough becomes important. Finn Balor is important. Obviously, Carmelo Hayes, you know, having your Johnny Garganos, Tommaso Ciampas, having wrestlers that are not 6'9" and 315 pounds for Wesley to be able to tussle with. And maybe, just maybe, Wesley ends up in the WWE Speed division, you know, and eventually competes for that Speed Championship, which, if you guys haven't had a chance to check out those matches on X, they're pretty solid. And it's amazing that they can get all that stuff done in 3 minutes or less.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, we'll see. It's gonna happen tonight. Shout out to Honey. She's gonna be doing the watch along for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be I like this era seems a lot more what is the word, organized. Like there was a point where we were, and I referred to it as my AfterBuzz days, where we were like watching, you know, Raw in particular, because we were doing that show. Where it's just like, what is going on? And then, you know, we got into that 2.0 era where it's just kind of like, you guys are trying something, but it's not working. And now the era that we're in right now is just kind of like, okay, it seems like you guys put pen to paper and there's a direction headed, and this is where we're going. So I'm really liking the organization about it.
And with, I was gonna say, with that, I'm also really interested in seeing what happens to these stars that get called up, you know, because I think one of the criticisms that have happened in times past is that they get called up and then there really isn't much room for them.
Right.
I think this will be different with Triple H at the helm right now, since he has such a great pipeline with what NXT has been producing. I think there is room, and my hope is that those who get called up from NXT specifically, that there is a space and a plan for them to be integrated into what's happening. And while I'm not happy about some of the injuries that have taken place, because, you know, there's injuries on the SmackDown side as well with Jimmy Uso and things like that, it does leave slots open for people to be able to somehow step in. And so, Sed mentioned a really good one. Sed just said Gallus getting picked up. I like that. I like that. That's it. And that's the thing. There are people who we probably don't remember. Like, part of me wonders, does Dijak get the call?
I think that's what it is, because, and I think we talked about this, we referenced this in RH as well. I think because you have such a big roster, and you know, the human brain can only take so many storylines. I think as far as writers wise, we can only do so many storylines. So we have these people who get called up, they can fill certain spots, but there's going to be some people who are just floating. And that's just the progression. Like, you know, some people now are, you know, sitting at catering because they don't have anything. I mean,
Right.
you know, we're gonna get into it with Jinder Mahal. Like he
Mhm.
was hot. Like he had the whole Bollywood, the Bollywood boys, the whole thing going, and then so and it's not to say he wasn't a good wrestler, not to say that he wasn't good on the mic, all this stuff. It just there was nothing. I think one of the reasons he got let go, there's really nothing for him. But not because it was intentional, it's just because they have so many people. And that's
Right.
kind of the problem with the, you know, if we do the call-ups from NXT, like obviously if they're going between Raw and SmackDown, you know, there's a little bit of shift, but we're doing the call-ups from NXT, we're adding more people to this pot. You know, it's some people are gonna get lost in the sauce. And it might not be the NXT folks, because not everybody's gonna get the red carpet like Bianca, or I mean Jade wasn't from NXT, but you know, from AEW.
Right.
Not everybody's gonna get that like we have slowly integrated, you know who she is here now.
Mhm.
You know, the progression of Bianca is, you know, not everybody's gonna get that. So it's gonna be interesting how it all goes. And then Dylan, this is another one too. Interesting to see Jacob Fatu is slipped in after we see where the bloodline falls. So there's that too.
Mhm. Speaking of that, do you think, because I know the bloodline is eligible tonight to be drafted, do you think they end up getting moved to Raw?
It depends on the story. Because now we have an injury, but now we have now now we have an injury, but now we have, I think, like Solo's like the interim head or the kind of sort of head.
We haven't figured that out yet.
So we have that. We have more family members coming. Yeah, it depends on the you know, the Rock's playing it. I think he said he was going away for a bit, but what does a bit mean? Does it mean till
Right.
SummerSlam? Does it mean till, you know, whatever? So it really just depends on. And I am pretty sure, I'm a fan of whiteboards, and it might seem really old school, but I'm pretty sure in somebody's office there's a whiteboard as far as the storyline of the bloodline. Like I am there's no way that this is going month to month. I'm sure there's a year, there's a year goal, there's a 5-year goal, there's all this other stuff. Oh, looks like little professor is kind of acted up. So shout out to him. But I'm sure that, you know, there's a goal, there's a long-term goal for the bloodline as far as where that is. And then on top of that, whatever that is within the year, that might change because there's so many family members. Like I'm always seeing pictures of family members. And for God's sakes, if y'all sign the Tonga twins to NXT,
ooh,
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. I you know, I think that they're still with WoW, and you know, I think WoW has an open door policy, but their social media is looking kind of jumpy right now. So, so it can you they. Oh, we're not gonna get all political, but can you imagine? Like they are like the younger female versions of the Usos, like 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
Like
the possibilities really are endless at this point.
What is Dylan saying? Dylan, does the real TK blackboards cost more or less than 60? I mean, I like whiteboards because you can use markers and they stay longer. With blackboards, I use chalk and they often get rubbed, or like I'm literally looking at a blackboard right now that I use for my pop-ups, and I always have to redo that. Whereas the whiteboards, they're a little bit more, the marker stays on a little bit longer. But there's a blackboard that takes the marker, then shoot, let's go. But yeah. MDB 999 saying WWE is gonna turn into awesome. I mean, it's no different than the NFL and the NBA. If you're good, you're good. Like, what do you want?
But this right here, this is the one right here.
Wow, y'all!
I heard the real TK liked trick boards.
This is for you, special little nobodies, because
oh wow. Wow.
Oh, goodness. What do we got? What do we got next?
Well, you'll probably want to end on that one, so I'll save that. Uh, I can't say that. Um, Jinder Mahal went to the socials to say thank you to everyone for the last 12 years or so in WWE. Talked about all the things that he did, but he said some very interesting things.
I'm gonna
He
pull
said,
it up.
okay, great.
I will pull it up for y'all.
Yeah, you'll want to hear what the Maharaja has to say. Oh man, while that's happening, said,
Oh, man.
yeah.
I appreciate all of you guys. I also want to thank everyone in the locker room, all the guys and girls, everyone working backstage, behind the scenes. Thank you. 12 years, 2 runs. Got to see and do amazing things. So many dream matches. Traveled the world. Got to do things that I never thought I'd be able to accomplish. Championships, being in a rock band. It's been an amazing journey. But what's next? What's next for the Maharaja? I've been here before. That time I was a kid, but now I'm a man. I will only present myself in a way that I want to. I will only do things that I want to. I will only go places that I want to. I still have many goals, many dream matches, many places I want to go. Where do I make an impact? India, Europe, Japan, Canada, Red Hook section of Brooklyn. We got about 11 more weeks. Maharaja out.
He dropped a few very interesting tea leaves there. Obviously talking about traveling around the world. He mentioned, where can I make an impact, which obviously that's a no to TNA. He talked about the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, which is obviously a reference to Taz, and Taz, of course, is in AEW. I think there are all kinds of options for him. And it is very interesting looking at, strangely enough, we remember earlier this year, funny how all this ties together, the other TK connecting Jinder Mahal and his comments about Jinder Mahal and getting a shot at the world title. All of those things now come together potentially. So it's interesting. I think, his perspective in terms of counting down the 90 days, and that's probably a perspective from one who has experienced this before, as opposed to what we saw with Cameron Grimes and how he felt about it, which obviously 2 very different scenarios. But I do think that it's clear Jinder Mahal is making plans. And much like we've seen from several of the other WWE releases, there's a future for all of these athletes if they want it. I think the thing people forget is just saying that you worked in WWE automatically gives you a leg up going into any of these other companies, as opposed to someone who's just in the independents trying to, get a break in TNA or some of the other places. Being able to say you worked at WWE, being able to be already recognizable on television and things like that, that's going to already get you in the door where some other things may not have. So I think the future for all of these guys are bright. I love Jinder's perspective to say, I'm only going to go where I want to go. I'm only going to do what I want to do. If only everyone could be in that space and have that level of determination, that's what they were going to do with their career and their work lives and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to watch what happens with Jinder Mahal in these next 83 days, we'll say. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was at TNA in Vegas, and a friend of mine came, and the first question, doesn't really watch wrestling. First question was, oh, is there going to be any WWE people there? So of course he lost his ish when Matt Hardy showed up. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, you have the people who follow all the products. Sorry, my dog is being very you have the people who follow all the products, and then you also have the people who the people who don't, who like watched it when they were a kid or just know certain names and stuff like that. So it's not a donut, y'all. She's not flying. She got a surgery, so that's why this is around her head. But you have a lot of people who you know, they don't know that, they just know the names from back in the day. And so Jinder Mahal, or even, you know, the connection to somebody that looks like them, that's gonna, so it's beneficial. And I have no doubt that there's so many more options, especially with social media. Like, you know, you have indie folks who are doing it the right way, and they're really utilizing the social media to get put on. And they don't even need, you know, I'm doing a lot of interviews, and people are like, and whether it's more like you don't want to aim too high, there are quite a few people who are like, well, you know, WWE is not the end all be all for my wrestling goals. So, you know, there is that.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I've talked to people, and this is what's so intriguing. I know in certain areas and elements, one would think that the end goal for anyone in the wrestling business is the WWE. But I have learned in talking to several on the independent space, wrestlers and other personalities, that WWE isn't the end goal for everybody. And it's not even necessarily that they don't feel like, you know, they could do that. Some have not, you know, a lot of this depends on what you grew up watching as a kid. You know, if you grew up in the NWA area or WCW territory, then something like AEW might look a bit more appealing to you. You know, if you grew up in a space in the Northeast or whatever, or where WWE was dominant programming, that might be the goal. There are others who are just like, I can't wait to get to Japan. Like, if I do that, that's the goal. New Japan, or you know, the historic NWA, with that being around now. TNA, like, there are options. And I think one of the most beautiful things right now is that we're in a world where one place really isn't the end all be all, and where you actually can make a solid living in the wrestling space without having to go to the largest company. So that's a good thing. It's a very, very good thing. And so that means that there are options.
Yeah, it depends on what type of life you want to live. Not what type of life you want to live, but type of life you're living. Because if you can string together or have enough indie bookings and you know, do other things, or you have enough of indie bookings and now it's two of you. Or I know somebody who, you know, they have a lot of indie bookings and their partner, you know, does something else that, you know, supplements the rest, then you can make it work. You're now doing what you love. My thing is just always making sure that you have a plan B, because not everybody's going to be able to wrestle when they're 50. So then what's that next thing that you're going to do? And, you know, not everybody is as, I don't know if the right word is lucky, but, you know, you could see, for instance, Big E, his transition, or it seems like he's going more into the hosting and doing all this other stuff. So I'm not going to be surprised if he ends up at the announce table. You know what I'm saying? So like, or people who end up backstage. I mean, we saw, I think it was on Monday, we saw Jordan. He came out. You know what I'm talking about? He was, oh my God, I could see his face. Oh my God. Kurt Angle's illegitimate son.
Oh, yeah.
He
Jason
came
Jordan.
out. Yeah, Jason Jordan. So he came out, he was in the suit. Clearly he's been doing stuff backstage. So you have people like, you know, making that, but that's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to have that opportunity. So, you know, just having those game plans is important. However, it just depends on what type of, you know, life you want to live.
Yeah. And what your aspirations are. So I think, again, it's all possible, you know. And so that's, you know, if there is a silver lining amid all of this, is that it's not, you know, where things were 15 years ago, where there were no alternatives. And if you were done with WWE, your wrestling career was virtually over. Not the case now.
What do we got next? What's our last story, I think?
Yeah, I guess so. This is a great way to end it. If you'll notice, if you've been watching WWE, of course, the Viking Raiders have been kind of split. Eric has been out with injury, so you've been seeing Ivar doing quite a bit of wrestling, and he's been seconded, of course, by Valhalla. But if you'll notice, Valhalla hasn't really been present much lately. And here's why. Because Valhalla is with child. She has announced that
you said it so like so I don't even know what the reference is, but that she's with child. Don't talk to her with any negativity. This is how Professor would cuss you out. He's like, you are not that bad.
What? How did we go from that?
It's just how you said it. She is with child.
Well, she is, and we are excited for her. She is pregnant with her second child, which is absolutely awesome. And so that's why she's been away. It looks like she will be having a boy. This will be their second boy, and this young man is due in November. Due in November. So congratulations. How exciting. I think it's great. You know, if you're gonna be off of TV, this would be why. So it was weird. We hadn't seen her out there, and I know Michael Cole's been loving the antlers and things like that. And this is the reason why. Valhalla, yes.
I'm gonna make an executive announcement.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how I'm gonna figure this out, but when I get married, I need the professor to do some type of like announcement of some sort. I don't like. I just don't know how. Like I don't know. Maybe we'll get Dylan to put it. I don't know, but I feel like this is how I want. This is how I want it to be presented.
I love it. I will gladly do that. That would be awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
She's with child. This young man is making his debut.
Well, he will be in November. Unless he feels like he needs to get called up early and
oh my
God, in October at the CW. I don't know.
Wow.
But congratulations. Jesus Christ. Jeez.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
I feel like that's probably what you would have said in like the Bible or 300 or like one of those movies where the guys are still wearing the sandals and the restrooms are still outside. Like it's one of those situations, like Spartacus. She's with child, my lord, for the 19th time.
Yes.
Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones. That's what it is. Oh my
This is great. This is great. So again, congratulations to both Eric and Valhalla. Looking forward to great things for them. And hopefully, it's a very healthy pregnancy and all of the things connected to that.
Well, they live on a farm. So I am pretty sure, like I was watching some of her videos as far as like how like they kill like their meat and they store it. And like, it seems like they're very like healthy.
Okay.
So it seems like, I don't see why. I mean, I wish every child's healthy, obviously, but
for sure.
It seems like this child will be super healthy, like super. If you live on a farm, I feel like
much better chance. That's for sure.
All right, Professor, how are you going to bid adieu to the audience?
I bid thee adieu. You can check out thine socials. No, you can check out my socials at Bonnerfied, where you can check out my commentary on Southern Honor Wrestling and IWE on IWTV. We just dropped a new show for Southern Honor this week, so make sure you guys go check it out. Some fun things for sure. You can also check out my work with the Nightmare Factory and Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling on their YouTube page, which, by the way, some of the content from Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling has also been added to the Memphis Wrestling YouTube page, so you can check that out as well. In addition, you can check out my work with All Caribbean Wrestling on their YouTube page. All sorts of great content there, including matches from Philly Mania, which was some kind of fun. So hopefully you guys can go back and check that out. Some great stories coming out of there. And then my work with Ashe Wrestling, you can check out at AsheWrestling.com. There have been lots of clips floating around about Ashe, and I've been kind of somewhere in the middle of those. So you guys can check that out. Some really cool moments happening at Ashe. And you can rewatch Cosmos if you've not checked it out at AsheWrestling.com. Feels like there's more to talk about. I know I've got an SHW show coming up next week, an IWE show coming up in May as well. And then this summer is looking to be very, very busy. Very, very busy.
It's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be a wild summer.
Whether my dog should get a passport, it's gonna be a situation.
It may be necessary.
Yeah. As far as Ashe, definitely go and check it out. Oh my God, the King Bees and Fire and Flavor.
The numbers on this are crazy.
Oh, because there's all the way. And then also, yes, I don't know if you guys said it in earlier this week, but congratulations, Ruby Soho. She announced pregnant as well. Yes. And then
which, side note, I think it's so cool in the wrestling world that we're announcing actual pregnancies in ring as opposed to, storyline pregnancies. I think there's something to be said for that. So congratulations to Ruby Soho.
Oh yeah. I won't say that, but it's definitely a good thing. And then for there's something somebody said. I don't know where it is. Okay, well, I missed it, but something somebody said, and I want to highlight it. But here he is. Here we are. But with that being said, you can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad, everything everywhere. You can follow Women's Wrestling Talk everywhere. Stay tuned for 5 o'clock my time, I think 8 o'clock Eastern time. Honey will be doing our SmackDown watch along. We also are going to have our Toro Divas watch along happening on Saturday. Our WoW post show is going to be happening on Sunday. We are also going to be doing a Backlash as well, post show with one of our very new additional hosts. So you can be on the lookout for that. You've already seen this person before, so I'm really glad that they joined the team. So we have all of that happening on Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Till next time, guys. Ciao.
Hey y'all, it's Kona.
And I'm Chaos. And you're watching
Women's Wrestling Talk.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WW Talk Pod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms, like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at www.talkpod.com. Thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.